Hello and welcome. I'm here today with the lovely Glynn Hughes, and we're going to be talking about EMF and EMF sensitivity and what we can do to mitigate the onslaught that we actually currently face at the moment. Glynn's an absolute expert in this field, and I hope you don't mind me saying that, Glynn, but I wanted to start off really with what's your background? How did you actually become an expert in this field?
Yeah, well, back in the late 90s and the early zeros, and particularly the early zeros, I was in telecoms, but more interestingly, it's funny how sometimes you seem to be set up for things. I was building wide area wireless networks before anybody had heard of Wi-Fi, or you know, most of us were still getting that crackly sound as we dialed up our internet.
Remember that?
Yeah. And so, but the telecoms industry thing kind of wore off for me a little bit. It felt a little bit. Anyway, let's just cut that short and say I left it. And I was really kind of kicking my heels, wondering what am I going to do next. And I walked into a printer's shop. Sounds like a weird story, doesn't it? But this is what happened with my daughter, who had been sick. And what had happened, she'd moved from junior school to senior school, and it was something like October, so she hadn't been there too long. But of 2004, this was, every Wednesday, she would come home from school with what she described as a migraine, but was probably a severe headache, but it was certainly debilitating, and vomit, not be well, and go to bed straight from school, not be able to go to school next morning, not fit, but would usually around lunchtime come around.
Wow.
Yeah. And so on this day when I walked, so it happened on the Wednesday, so on this Thursday at lunchtime, I'm taking her into school, stop at this printer shop. She comes in with me, she's wearing the school uniform. And the printer took, you know, I was going into offering some work, and working on my next business, and which never came to fruition because I'm just about to get sidetracked. I didn't know about it. And he looks at Hannah and sees the uniform. I don't really understand what's going on. And he says, "So what's been the matter with you, my dear?" And we tell the story. And he says, "Oh, you've got the early signs of radiation sickness." And you know, you can imagine the dad going,
yeah.
And so I said, "Can you stop right there? And is it okay if I take you to school? And can you come back? I'm going to come back. Would you mind taking some time to explain, you know, your thinking behind that?" Mm-hmm. And so I took her to school, and I went back, and so it turned out this chap, what had happened to him had turned him into a radical expert on the subject, was that he and his wife had a child, and for the first 18 months, 12 to 18 months, memories, it's a long time ago now, but something like that, the child had barely been able to keep food down and had pretty much screamed 24/7. And they didn't know what was going on. They were trying to find everything. They were even under investigation by the NHS, you know. And I ended up, because he wasn't very eloquent, and I ended up going to speak for him at an NHS meeting at one point, but that was further down the line. But so he didn't know what was going on. But what happened was they went on a holiday. They had a touring caravan. They took it to Cricketh, into a lovely, you know, idyllic type place. And the baby stopped screaming for the first time and held its food down. And they were there for a fortnight. And the baby started to get better. Went back home after the holiday. Baby started screaming again, can't take the food. So that's something wrong with the house. So they start to do a little bit of investigation. And they discover a thing called Southport Residents Against Maths. Right? And so he starts talking to them, and some of the boffins involved in this. Oh yeah, well, your baby's problem will be that phone mast. Okay. And so I said, "Oh, you know," but he was prepared to give it a try. So he wasn't the only child they had. He moved his family of 5 into a touring caravan on a local tourist site. It's near Southport, so there's plenty of choice to go, you know. And the baby got well. So, and it was in the middle of this, or just after this, it was when I walked into the printer's shop, and and he knew about some health issues in the school that my daughter went to. And what we worked out then quite quickly was that the Wednesday when she became sick, she would have 3 periods in the maths building. She had a double maths and a free period.
Right.
And that was the top building in the school. And on top of that on the top floor, and on top of that floor were 8 orange foam masks. Okay, so
And this is 20 years ago nearly.
yeah. So I got quite agitated about that. and I started a camp. Well, first of all, I went to see the headmaster with John, the guy from the printers. And we told our story there, and he was, wow, yeah, I'm not, not having this. We're going to get these taken down. We don't want any more sickness among our children. And we booked to come back and see him a few weeks later. By the time we got back, he'd contacted Lancashire Education Authority, or whatever it's called, and they said, oh yeah, you can get them taken. Well, you can try. You're in a contract, and the first thing I'll tell you is that if you get out of it, it's going to cost you 40 grand or whatever it was, because they've paid years in advance. So when we got back, he was really aggressive and anti everything that we could say, and we ended up with back in the days when the BBC were still occasionally told a bit of truth, we ended up getting thrown off the premises with the BBC at one point, and there was a famous, I was threatened with the police, and there was a famous email he sent me where we got into this increasingly aggressive communication
Debate.
Yeah, it wasn't great, and sometimes I could have been more gracious, but I'm more mature these days. But
no, but that was your daughter's health.
Yeah, well,
I was being impacted, so I get it completely. By
then, though, it was everybody else's health because I'd moved her out of school, and so there was one email, just a funny story for you, where he wrote to me and said, "You need to stop bothering me. I've contacted Orange, and they've told me that the signal, and this was December by then, the signal just goes straight up into the sky." And I wrote back and I said, "Really? And how is Santa Claus this year?" Actually, he's going to be the only one that's using it.
Crazy, isn't it?
Anyway, so yeah, so
that's how it all began.
Yeah, and then I met a lady called Eileen O'Connor and a guy called Gerard Hyland, and we started to, build a bit of momentum. The BBC, well, the local papers got involved, and then the BBC got involved, and John and I, the printer, we put up a little website. It was a bit of a activist website, really. And people started to contact me because of the way there was lots of press interest. It was a bit of a legend in my own lunchtime for a while, and because of my history with building wireless infrastructure, people assumed that I could stop it, which was, to a large extent, was true. And so people started to contact me, and I was invited to speak at a really big meeting in London, and I just suddenly, that's all I did, and I didn't want to, but I didn't have time for it, and it was a passion. And then we did this is an interesting story before we finish this aspect of it. Where John lived, the chap with the baby. One of the things people need to understand is that mobile phone masts, you can't tell what they're doing to you by looking at where they are. Okay, so if I don't know if I can do it, so that's your mobile phone mast. Then you typically will have 3, maybe 4, but often 3. Let's say 3 for this experiment. We'll have a beam that comes out of it, or 3 beams that come out of it, like that. And they're called the beams of maximum intensity. Now, where they break ground is the most dangerous place you can be. So they're depending on what they're trying to do within the network, and so you don't know unless you know what you're doing. Where this beam of the maximum intensity is going to break down, but it typically will break ground in a number of, well, if it's a rural one, it might break ground in a farm or on a field, but urbanly, if that's a word, where it breaks ground will usually be in a set of houses. So back in those days, there wasn't all this fancy equipment that we have now, but there was some rudimentary stuff. You had to sort of persuade the guy who made it that you were genuine to get it. You couldn't buy stuff in those days. But we had a piece of kit. So we traced the beam of maximum intensity from the foam mask that had been making John's baby sick.
Right.
And so we found with this equipment where it landed, and it landed in, when I say we, I should say they, because I was less involved than some of the other members of SRAM. So where it landed and it covered 8 homes, 8 houses. And in those 8 houses, one was empty, we were led to believe, because the people were dead, or at least the person that owned it was dead. One we couldn't find anything out about. The other 6 all had cancer.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that's that story of how I got involved. From that point on, there was nothing that was going to detract me from
Yeah, and I'm going back because this is 20 years ago, near enough. And things have advanced so much more now, and we've got all these other technologies coming in, smart this, smart that, meters, you know, flipping heck. My husband's obsessed with his air fryer, and he just about conked out the one he'd had for a good few years. So he went and bought another one. And he came back and he's unpacking it, and I'm looking at the box and it's saying smart. It's a smart air fryer.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going, oh my God, it's another thing coming into the house. So I'm constantly switching it off at the mains, and he's putting it back on, and it's just we're overwhelmed by this stuff, aren't we?
Yeah, and back in those days, of course, the only thing that we would encounter would be a phone mast and a cordless phone. Yeah, there wasn't anything else. No Wi-Fi, by the way. Wi-Fi hadn't happened at that stage.
No, it's crazy. So you ended up obviously down this huge rabbit hole, and you know, you set up EMF Protection, your company, and the website, which we'll put in the comments, is emf-protection.co.uk. Who do you see coming to you for help?
Everybody. We have everything. Of course, the name of the group calling of the people we get most of is electrically sensitive people. Yeah. Or electrically hypersensitive people. There is a supposed difference, and I'm not quite sure who decided where that was or what it was, but we'll go with that. And so the reason that most of our clients, of which now we've got, I think, over 10,000, the reason that most of our clients come to us is because somebody's explained to them that the symptom or the malady that they're experiencing either is or may be down to electrical magnetic radiation. Or in other words, they are sensitive to electricity. But this is a long answer to a short question, but we're all sensitive to electricity. And if you don't believe me, I was going to say that we've all got a degree of sensitivity, haven't we? But some are more sensitive than others. Yeah. And so my client range, it doesn't tend to be people who are only in their minds, because it's about how we interpret how we're feeling. You know, when in this modern world, you know, in your fabulous group, you know, you've got experts in so many different fields, and literally the fields can be the problem, can't they? You know, they're not what they were, and the fields in my magnetic and electric fields are also the problem. And so none of us, my point is, none of us are feeling the way we should, or we might have done 100 years ago or whatever, but we're living in a wonderful world with great technology. That's a whole other story, isn't it? But we're all sensitive to electricity. My a lady I've worked with for probably about 15 years, the lady now was only a kid when I met her. Her electrosensitivity had gone so far that she became light sensitive, and she would have to live in a darkened room for 23 hours a day. She's a little bit better than that now. Just horrendous. Yeah, and we have everything on that scale down to people who just got the odd headache, and if now at the moment, because as you know, I've been suddenly sort of thrust into the media, it's interesting because we're getting the people that just don't know. You know, I got a message from my son who works with us, and he deals with social media, so he gets all these comments. I don't even know what you do with them, you know. Yeah. And he sent me a comment today. He said, "Dad, what's the answer to this?" And somebody had said, "I've got," what did he have? Oh yeah, so as he walked around his house, the lights switched on and off automatically, driven by sensors. And so, you know, interesting what you were talking about earlier, all the stuff that's going on. And he'd seen some kind of TikTok thing or whatever these kids do, you know, that Jack and commented, you know, is this going to be dangerous? And Jack's saying to me, well, is that dangerous, Dad? I said, well, and I actually know how that stuff works, so I do know what he's facing. I said, well, yeah, possibly, but you know, there'll be so much more. Yeah. And so the point is, the clients they pick their own issue, and I'm sure you're used to that. You know, they decide what's wrong with them and come to you, and you're thinking, well, you probably are suffering a little bit from that, but there might be something else. So the short end of the long answer is everybody. We never know who's going to come next. And I know you're going to ask me about the Health Academy later, but that's why that became a dream of mine fairly early on. Yeah, it's quite, and our sort of class range. I've worked with 2 royal families. I worked for the brother-in-law of the King of Bahrain, right in the very early days. I worked for a queen in Malaysia. We've worked with some decent sized corporations, but we also do pro bono work with, because a lot of people who are highly or electro hypersensitive, to use the vogue, they can't work. Yeah. Yeah. And so we hope that by, you know, the ones that can pay and do pay and don't harass us too much for discount can help us to look after those that can't pay. And we're doing more of that work now because we're bigger as a company, so we can afford to. But yeah, so sorry, that was a really long answer to a short question. But yeah, no, it's a great answer. And you know, we are so aligned, yourselves and PHA, in that you know, good health shouldn't be a privilege, it should be for everybody. So we have to find ways of creating you know, a fund that allows everybody, no matter what their financial situation, to get the best care they can do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about the Academy. Just sticking with the website for a moment and the products that you've got on there. You know, I suppose in terms of this interview, what I'd love to give people at this stage, because it's such a huge topic, isn't it, and it goes deep, some top tips about what can you do quickly, and we're probably talking about this straight away, aren't we? That we all carry around with us every day. I've even got this silly thing hanging off mine that my daughter bought me. Thinking, what am I doing with that on there? But yeah, if we could get some maybe top tips in terms of, okay, we're starting from scratch here. What can you do really quickly to just try and mitigate some of the impact? Yeah. One of the things I'm working on at the moment for the aforementioned Academy is kids. You know, it was kids that got me into it, and I'm still passionate about saving them. So one of the things I've just done a video I could possibly share. It's only about a minute. Do you want me to share it on the share screen? Oh, let me just enable you to. Not sure. Oh, I can't. I've still forget it. I've shut down the thing that it was on. It was some kind of weird social media thing that I don't understand. Well, we can stick it in the description of the video. Okay. Okay. So we'll put the link to the video. What was the video? So it demonstrates this. Okay. So there's my iPhone. Yeah. And if we pop that in there, you see that well, you probably can't see, but it's on airplane. And what I've done is, we don't have Wi-Fi. So that's a LAN connection to our internet router. That's then plugged into the phone. And then you'll see on the little video that we're going to put on, I demonstrate what kids doing normally, on TikTok and Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And then what happened with the monitor, wherever it is. So we demonstrate, the monitor has sound, so and so you can see the radiation, or hear the radiation happening, and you plug this in, and that gets rid of the radiation. So you can give that to your kids, and so that.
Are you stocking those now on your website?
So yeah, there will be in stock in the next few days. This is brand new, hot off the press. It's something I was working on yesterday. So there's that. Then of course, well, you just talked about air fryers with wireless connect. I think is the phrase we're looking for.
Yeah.
And you go into schools, if I go into school with one of our monitors, it's just going crazy because they've got the same sort of stuff going on. Everything's Wi-Fi. So we try and encourage, we're hoping to launch a new kids clothing range because I'm an old dad. I'm a young dad. My eldest is 38 and my youngest is 10 or is she 11?
Wow.
And there's a few more in between those.
You've got 7, haven't you? Little bird told me.
7.
2's enough.
Yeah, you're right.
Hands after that.
1 was enough. If I work out what's causing it, I'll put a stop to it.
For now. Anyway.
Yes. So what we've discovered is it's okay having an article of clothing for a kid, but if they won't wear it, it's no good. So the new range we're developing will be a bit more kid friendly, hopefully, and be based around underwear and stuff like that, so that they can wear stuff for school and they can't see. And just trying to educate the kids to show them maybe little videos like we've just been talking about. And look, this is what it does to you.
My pet hates, I'm getting on a flight, watching everyone with these earbuds.
There's a video of that I can send you.
My children as well. I keep saying to them, don't put them in your ears. You're just completing the circuit straight through,
Yeah, and there's, you can get stuff online, but there's actual evidence of people with brain tumors, the shape of the phone they used. So we've got to start shocking people, really.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't want to I'm not here to push the academy, but where I am, the space I'm in at the moment is the answer to your question is education. But to start with, so just think about your kids. Go on our website. There's lots of stuff on our YouTube channel. There's loads of stuff on there. I think it's over 80 videos so that's really prior to what the word I'm not going to mention again right now.
Yes.
there's the YouTube channel, but it's simple things like, obviously don't charge your phone next to your bed at night.
Guilty. Not anymore.
Oh, good. Keep your phone up. Do use that system I just showed, but obviously that's not simple because there's no point in using that unless you've hardwired your house or created a scenario where you can think about the spaces you spend the most time. You have a monitor. I know I've said it's not my favorite one, but it still does work to a degree. So it might not pick everything up, but it's still a lot better than nothing. So, one of the things, oh no, I'm going to do it again then. But it's something that we may be doing in the future. We intend to have monitors that people can rent or hire or share between them. It's about community really, and getting
it is, isn't it?
Not everybody wants to spend 100 quid on a monitor, and if you spend 100 quid, you won't be much good, let alone £1,000 to get one that measures 5G and so on and so forth. And so measuring is important, but until you can get to that space where you either got one or someone who's got one, then just think, okay, perhaps the best place to charge my phone isn't by the bed. And an airplane is not a sin. Airplane mode.
Yeah.
It's an airplane now. Now I'm having this call with you, so it would be. So I don't want it to be ringing when I'm having a call with you. That would be rude and disrespectful. But a lot of the time, it's on there anyway. Because
it's changing habits, isn't it? It's being aware, changing your habits.
Electricity. That's an almost unknown part of the electromagnetic frequency problem. Give you another spiky story about that. Back to the early days, I worked with a lady who shall remain nameless because she got really involved in the fight, and it can be a dangerous place, like anywhere where you're promoting health against industry.
Yeah.
So I can't name the person, but she's still a friend and a client of mine now. And so she was instrumental in me getting involved in the Southeast scene, if you like, which launched me in this career. And so she knew a lot, she knew a lot, and we had been together since 2004. And in 2008, we were the first people in the UK to get involved with dirty electricity. So we were able to bring some filters in from the States. And she had not been well, she had skin cancer. And so I said to her, well, maybe you should take a look at it. Because at that time, I can be a bit over-focused on one area. You might and I focused on dirty electricity, and we tried everything else. So I said, why don't we have a look at that? And so she did. She used our filters for the dirty electricity, and the skin cancer disappeared. Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah. So I mean, it all sounds radical, but EMFs in the wrong, as it turned out, what had happened was, without getting into too much detail, dirty electricity is an issue that we largely cause ourselves once our supply is into the house. And sometimes if you get a faulty appliance, it can send it skyrocketing. And what happened in her case is she'd got a PC hard drive that was, well, I don't know if it's faulty or not, but we were talking about dirty electricity, so she measured, and you measure locally with dirty electricity, and it was through the roof. So we got rid of this hard drive and filtered the house. And I think because the hard drive was where she sat all day. So I think it was the hard drive actually, but that was producing the dirty electricity. So it's where, again, that's about monitoring, get hold of obviously we do all this stuff, get hold of a monitor,
Go through the house.
Yeah.
See what's going
on. Earthing is always, but
I've got a mat under my bed sheet.
Good, but the problem with that is there's a little bit of education needed there too, because if you connect how do you connect your earthing mat under your sheet?
It goes into a plug socket.
So if that's got dirty electricity in it,
I've also got one of those, and I'm a bugger, I buy things because I do read and I see things, and I did buy an EMF thing that plugs into a plug socket, and it's supposed to sort out the whole system in the house. I don't know, you're probably thinking, no, you've been scammed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting, it's called, or we like to refer it to as friendly signal override. Okay, so I'm not as against it as I used to be. I am still against it, but not completely. So so we've moved on to kind of to why are we getting sick?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a massive amount of conjecture over Schumann resonance at the moment. So in theory, if you connect cleanly to the earth, which I would assume at the moment, we're going to come and radicalize your house at some point.
Yeah, we are.
But at the moment, we can, I think, fairly safely assume that you're earthing into an unclean earth. But what you're trying to do is reach a clean earth. Now, the question then comes, are you reaching the clean earth to take electromagnetic frequency out of your bed? It's what we call body voltage. Klinghart's big on this. And we've got a monitor that, so when Esther and I come and see you, we're going to pop you on your bed, and then we're going to put a little wand in your hand, and we'll do some jiggery pokery, and we'll know the amount of electrical activity going on in your body, what we call body voltage. And it's what Klinghart puts a lot of autism in pregnancy down to that. And it's something, it's a 50 hertz signal, and Esther can't be around it. I don't know if you saw Esther when we were at the Better Way conference, but where we were staying, we couldn't, because we switch all the power off at night. That's my biggest if you
Yeah.
know, when you're still answering that short question,
That top tip, yeah.
that is number one. Switch all the power off at the mains. Your fridge, your freezer will be fine. The issue comes if you've got alarms and things like that, you know, and everybody will have to look at their own situation with that. But fridge, I've done it for, Esther and I have done it for over 10, 12 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Problem is, like I talked about earlier, when you rid yourself of EMF, when you then come into contact with it again,
You sense it more.
Yeah. And so, yeah, body voltage is massive. Esther can't be around it. She in a better way, because we thought we'd sorted it where we stayed, but we hadn't. And by day 3, she didn't know her own name almost. You know, it was, you know, it took her about 2 or 3 weeks. She's still on the clean eating diet. She adopted after raw food. She's still doing all that just to
recover from it.
Yeah, she's a pretty clean eater anyway. But so that's a big one. If you can, virtually everybody that we've persuaded, and Esther and I over the years have persuaded probably hundreds of people to do this, and very few people come back from it, because the difference in your sleep patterns will be massive. Not even the second biggest, the biggest in conjunction with that, but this costs money and it's a significant amount, but it's probably the best investment you can make to really find out what it's like to live without EMF, and that's a bed canopy. You notice I keep pointing back to the bedroom.
Yes.
And I believe you didn't sleep too well last night. Well,
absolutely. Yeah.
If you'd been doing what I'm suggesting, you probably would have done. You know, in our case, I'm in my office, but beyond that wall is Esther in my bedroom, and that's all painted. And so whatever, I don't know whether Elon Musk is a hero or a villain. I don't think any of us do yet. We see seems to be a hero, but I'm not sure, because I'm not that keen on electric cars, and I'm not that keen on Starlink. But when he switches Starlink on properly, it won't go on in our bedroom, because our ceiling's painted, our walls are painted, and our windows are covered with curtains that have got shielding fabric inside them. So we can do all sorts of different things. If you know,
you need a sanctuary, don't you? It's so
yes.
You created your sanctuary.
Absolutely, it's a milk bottle. Whenever I meet people for the site, I always say it's a milk bottle. And whatever you're doing all day, your EMF milk bottle is being filled up. And if you don't, during that crucial 8 hours, start to empty it again, then eventually you'll fall over with your milk bottle.
Yeah.
And you will.
And
we get the people who have fallen over. You know, this is still, no, that was the question before, wasn't it? Clients. The clients that come to us, and typically they would be obliterated in the day. So we get a lot of IT people. We get, you know, people that work in the city, you know, and they,
aren't they, constantly?
Yeah. So their milk bottle only takes 10 years to fall over, whereas yours and mine might take 20 or 30, but it will fall over if you don't, in particular, at night. So those are my tips. First, the obvious easy ones. You know, even if you can just find a way to switch the power off underneath the bed. So that will generally be, if it's on the first floor, it will generally be lighting circuits and stuff like that below the bedroom floor. Now, I moved away from the earthing question, didn't I? So you're earthing wisely to either get the body voltage out of your bed, which you need to do, or connect to the Earth's natural healing frequency, Schumann resonance. Okay, so the little doobry that you've bought is likely to be sending a Schumann resonance type weak electromagnetic signal around your bedroom or your house. And that is, in theory, going to say to your cellular system within the body, it's okay, we've got rid of the Wi-Fi and the phone mast and the deck phone and the baby monitor. Don't get me going on baby monitors, we'll be here all day. And the air fryer, and we've got all rid of all that. And because it's gone down, because here's this nice little friendly signal. Well, that's not going to happen. And when we come, Esther and I, with the equipment, we'll do the testing with your gadget on, with your gadget off. And what you'll see is scientifically nothing changes. Now, what you'll find with all these companies that are selling these things is that they'll usually have some kind of blood test where they show sticky blood after somebody's held a mobile phone, and then they switch this thing on and the blood goes all normal again. And I'm not saying that those are not true, but and therefore there could be some validity in having one switched on. But if what we're talking about is pulsed, non-ionizing microwave radiation. Now, there's effectively two distinct types of radiation. You've got your pulsed, non-ionizing microwave radiation and your thermal microwave radiation, or ionizing radiation. And so the ionizing...
It's a nuclear bomb.
Yeah. And so one's a nuclear bomb and the other's a mobile phone. Some of our scientists on our side will say, well, actually, because you're going to continue to be exposed to the non-ionizing, and we're back to the milk bottle theory,
yeah,
and there's going to be a lot more people killed by pulsed microwave non-ionizing radiation than by ionizing radiation, because we watch that, we shield against it, we try and make sure it doesn't escape into the atmosphere, blah, 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 blah. Whereas because ICNIRP, that's the International Committee for Ionizing Radiation Protection. So the people that designed the British safety system for mobile phone networks and wireless devices of any kind, well, the quick story of how that happened. So back in the 90s, I think it might have been two Jags, what was he called? John Prescott, who Labour in at the time called in the phone industry. So look, it was when they were rolling it out, and you're putting these infrastructures in, are they safe? And the phone just said, well, we don't know, that's your job. And the government said, no, it's your job. Does this remind you of anything? And somebody somewhere said, there's loads of money, and they went, who cares?
Exactly. Nail on the head.
Yeah. And so the government sent the industry away to get to police itself. Does that remind you of anything?
Can't imagine that happening, can you?
No, that would never happen, would it? And so they contacted ICNIRP, the Ionizing Radiation Protection Board. And so the safety guidelines that if if somebody sticks a phone mast, a 5G phone mast outside your window, and you go to the council, they'll say, well, it's nothing compared to ICNIRP guidelines. Yeah, but they're thermal. It's the nuclear bomb guidelines that are being used.
Yeah.
Radio frequency. No, it's not a nuclear bomb.
Different.
But it's still going to harm you.
Yes.
And so the point on the thing about the plugins and the nice friendly technology overrides and all of that is they don't change any of the actual scientific radiation that's going on in your environment. They supposedly override it, but if that were true, you're trying to override a very, very powerful signal, electronic happening, with a very, very weak one. It's a debate, if you got one of the gurus that promotes these things on and me on, we might end up falling out, I think.
That's what we do next. Facilitate that.
Are we?
It'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yes, well, I think so. Better make sure we're in separate rooms.
Yeah, absolutely. All this brings us very nicely to what we need to do here. There's so many things that we could have touched on in this conversation, but we obviously don't have. We could talk all day about it, and I'm sure people watching are really interested and have their own questions. We need to educate and empower people, don't we?
Yeah.
And that's where the EMF Health Academy comes in.
Yeah. Pretty much what we've done so far has been an attempt, hasn't it, to cover a massive subject that needs, well, it's my 20 years of being immersed in it. And in the early days, I had time to do this almost on a one-to-one basis, but it quite quickly, that started to run out. And so it's probably been a dream of mine for about 15 years to to educate people to look after themselves. It's a bit of, you know, instead of giving a starving person a meal, let's give them and teach them how to grow their own food. It's that sort of scenario. So I dreamt about it, and then in recent years, since over the last 3 years, since, you know, things have changed for many people in terms of how they view things, including EMF, that's made it's enabled us to invest in the EMF Health Academy, because for those of you, and I know loads of you are going to join, for those of you that join, when it kicks off, you'll think, oh, this is a nice academy. Well, I can tell you, there's blood, sweat and tears gone into it already, and a lot of finance, because it doesn't look like it needs any finance. And when I started off, you know, we did employ and redirect a few employees into the area, but it looked like it was just going to be a little bit of wage, but it hasn't been. It's been more than that. And so we needed the cash, and we started it before we had it, but we seem to still be going. and it's coming together well. And the really brilliant thing is it looked like it was going to be largely me doing this at first, but we've got some talks to some great names.
Yeah. I've got a mention Ian Jarvis, wonderful man, and I think he's getting involved, isn't he, with the academy?
Nikki's dealing with Ian, so I don't know. I haven't met Ian or didn't know anything about Ian until you guys introduced me, but I believe he's a wonderful guy. And that just so I hope that, yeah, that he will be one of them, but I can't say that. There's a number of, one massive name in both yours and my industry that I can't say anymore, but he might come on.
Go on.
No,
Give us initials.
No, I can't do it. And if he comes on, then that'll just be amazing. But we've got some people who have confirmed. I can't mention JR yet either at your meeting tonight, but he's pretty much on.
Yeah.
Connor, do you know Eileen O'Connor?
I've only heard you talking about him.
Fantastic woman, amazing woman. Met her back in 2004. She got breast cancer, went in the oncology department, met a neighbour who also had breast cancer, and they were all sort of in the 30s. And then they went around talking to all the other neighbours, and almost all of them had some terrible disease, often cancer. And they discovered there's a mobile phone mast in the beaming the maximum beam maximum intensity, and all these people were suffering. So she became an activist, and she was from a nice part of Liverpool, as long as you knew the other people who lived in that nice part of Liverpool, if you see what I mean. She'd done good.
I'm tuning in. I'm going to keep.
All right, yeah, watch it. I'll keep you away from it. So she'd made it good. She'd had a successful business, but she came from humble beginnings, let's say that. And so one night, I think it coincided. I think it was on the 4th of July. This phone mast just suddenly collapsed. I know.
Bizarre.
Strange. And for some strange reason, there was these big, hairy bouncer types from this small part of Liverpool that Eileen didn't know, who decided to camp out around the fallen phone mast, so that when Orange came, or T-Mobile it was, when T-Mobile came to put it back up, they weren't keen to allow that to happen. So this went on for some time, and then T-Mobile gave up. And,
they gave up.
Yeah, but Eileen, she's the head of Radiation Research Trust. She interacted at government levels. She was, just such a fabulous woman. But she is going to be part of the course, and the area that she will cover as much as anything is the legal side of things, and how to stop the smart meters, how to stop the phone mast going up, how to stop the 5G, so that when you're in the academy, if something is bothering you, there will be a template that you just need to put your address in and whack it off.
I'm glad you mentioned the smart meters. I've said before, because we get harassed all the time. Text messages, phone calls, we need to come in and stuff. No, take me off your list. It's not happening. But they persist, don't they?
They do, and unfortunately, most of the time they go away. But on the odd occasion, they will pick on somebody, and they will put all the force of the mighty corporation against little individuals. And there's one particular case that when Eileen will do one of the nights on the program, and I'll try and get her to tell the story about this poor woman that was harassed to almost, not being well really, and Eileen got it stopped and got rid of them. And
yeah, this is it. We've got to empower people, know your rights, and how to come together in your communities and start fighting back against this.
And start, alerting what we want to do as well. What we find a lot of, we actually, or Esther, if you look at our Trustpilot, we've got 530 odd Trustpilots. And if you look at them, I don't exist, and none of the rest of the company do. It's all Esther, because she's just brilliant at helping people to get to a place of health. But there is a number of suicides that she's saved, and one of her passions, and my passion too, I'm with her on it, for the Health Academy, is to empower. It tends to be women, which is probably why Esther's excited about it. You do get a lot of people, but usually women, in a household who are suffering with electrosensitivity, and the rest of the family don't get it. And so the rest of the family, and they get sent to GPs, and of course the GP doesn't get it. So the GP says they're mad and wants to give them antidepressants. And usually the electrically sensitive people are usually sensitive. Almost all of our people are spiritually sensitive and awake. They're not just awake to AS, they're awake to everything else.
Yeah.
And what you tend to find is, this poor person who didn't take the prescribed medical procedure, but everybody else in the house did. And, and everybody else in the house, sons, daughters, uncles, mothers, husbands, thinks they're mad. The GP thinks they're mad. It can turn people suicidal. It
can, and it's broken down marriages, hasn't it?
And so what we want to do within the academy is help people to come with a little bit more force, but gently, if that makes sense. So what we want to do is to take people on a journey. Oh, Teams has just fired up, and that's, sorry about my beep. And to take people on a journey, so that the spouse, if you like, who's suffering, can say, can you talk to, so within the community there will be people, and of course there's us and the people within our company ourselves, but also there'll be architecture, I think is the phrase, that, so would you just read this, I'm not mad and I'm not on my own, and to try and create harmony in the house that doesn't have it.
Will the forum, will the academy also include some kind of forum so that people can come together and support each other? And
yes, so it's going to, I hate to use the word Facebook, but it's going to have a chat facility very similar to that, and it will be monitored, but from a good point of view, not, but encourage people to tell the truth, not stop them.
Yeah.
But sorry about this, I don't know why my Teams is suddenly kicked off, and I don't know how to stop it. So yes, the community will talk together. We want it to be a place where at 3 a.m, when the electrosensitive person wakes up or hasn't managed to get to sleep, and they know that that's because that there's various things on in the house that are not helpful. That there's somebody else so they can go on to the EHA website. It's a community-based website. It's one of those that's designed for charities and things like that. And eventually we want to make it a charity.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, there's going to be places for them to go.
Very exciting.
Also for practitioners. What we know is that a lot of your guys and girls will be treating people who are electrosensitive, and most of your people, because they're enlightened people, will know there's a problem with EMFs.
Yeah.
Most of them won't know what to do about it.
Yeah. So there's a place to direct people now.
Yeah. But also for themselves to get educated, because that, if you're a holistic practice, and you may be any number of different disciplines, we'll all be facing people that you can help with your discipline. I have a great osteopath, and he promotes me and I promote him. Well, he don't need to actually, because he's always fully busy, but you know, he helps my overall scenario, which helps me deal with EMFs.
Not Nick T, is it?
No, it's
Oh.
a guy called David. I can't say his second name because it's Italian, but he's over in Cone or Nelson. Yeah, Nelson.
Right.
And so it's an add-on to your business. So it depends, you know, if you've got a massive successful practice and you just don't need any more hassle, well, that's, you know, we'll leave you alone. But if you could do it improving a little bit, then ultimately the course will take you to a place where you can do EMF surveys. There's an add-on to the course at the end of it, which is an actual, obviously the course is online, but the add-on is physical, where we'll be there as a team demonstrating and teaching people how to do EMF surveys. We can't supply the EMF surveys that we get asked to supply. You know, if we've got 1 or 2 people around that we can do it, but we can't do the whole country because we're just a slight. So the people that learn how to be surveyors, we will use.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that's how we can help, obviously. So imagine if we had an EMF expert in every hub.
That's what we want. We've got to, you know, because if you get somebody who keeps coming back, you know, you're good at your discipline, and somebody keeps coming back with the same malady, you know, you treat them and they, you know, they go out, or you get them on the right nutrition and they, you know, they get a bit better, but they come back, they still can't sleep, then they almost certainly, the electrically sensitive people will be diagnosed with ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yeah.
So that tells you something, doesn't it?
It does.
So if we're nutritioning people to the ultimate, and we know that our nutrition's good, you know, we've got them clean eating, we've got them raw, whatever it is, and you know, they're exercising, da-di-da-di-da, and they're still coming back with no energy. I'm not a gambling man, but if I was, I'd put money on it being EMFs.
Yeah, it's something that can't be ignored.
Yeah.
It really can't. When does the academy launch? Is it going to launch in October?
Academy's in October, but there's a taster session coming up in I think the second week of August, which is free.
Oh, fantastic.
So what we'll do is we'll get you all the links, because we want, you know, we want to help support you. So there's also a financial program that goes with it for the people like your practitioners who, when they sign up, and then sign up, you know, encourage their clients to sign up, because we want, again, you know, we want to educate them all. Ultimately, we'd like to see, like you said, a fully fledged expert in every hub.
That would be ideal, wouldn't it?
Would,
That'd
yeah.
be amazing.
And we could use them too, because we can't get around everybody that wants to see us. Yeah, so the course starts properly in October. It runs for, I think it's 10 months, and then at the end of it, if you get an accreditation, so you'll be, you know, if you're a practice, then obviously you can use that in practice. If you're an individual, you can just have a nice qualification.
Yeah, and go and help everybody that you know.
Yeah.
Spread the word.
Yeah, and then at the end of it, there's the course to become a surveyor.
Fantastic. It's brilliant. I'm very excited about it. Very excited to be partnering with you and helping to push this forward. It's so needed. Do let us know about the taster session so that we can get that out. If you've got a link to that before we put the video out, we'll stick it in the description.
I'll send you, because there's a link for you to, you know, to be an affiliate. So
super. Well, we'll whack all that into the description of this video. You know, I think it's a shame that we've only got a short time to talk, because there's so much to talk about, but we can do others. But the academy's coming up. I urge everybody to get behind that. At the moment, they can see that on your website, can't they? EMF protection.co.uk, and there's an opportunity, a banner, whatever they call them, these techie people, but you'll be able to see it on there. But everything will be in the description. Really appreciate talking to you, Glynn. I'm even thinking, you know, when you and your beautiful wife come over to do your survey of here, we could video parts of it and just share it.
Yeah.
Let people see what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
And what we find, more to the point.
Indeed.
We'll see.
I could do that.
Okay. Lovely to see you. We'll speak again soon. And any questions, guys, everything will be in the description.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thank you.